Well, last week we did our first ever Fantasy League video, and a handful of people said, can you keep doing this? That's enough for us. We're pretty desperate here in Hammers Chat. We don't mind. A handful of people is more than adequate. Frankie, how did you get on match week 1?
It was okay. It was a decent enough start. I've seen some people who went flying, but they're going to struggle a little bit this week because they very much focused on just getting as many points in week 1 as possible. I kind of went a little bit more long-term plan. But then there was some obvious mistakes, and actually a couple of them you called out, and I was very close to going, do you know what, I'm going to flip this back on Geo. He's told me to get rid of this person, bring in Chris Wood. I was very close to actually doing it, so I could go, there you go, Geo, I listened to you, and thanks very much for the tips, and there's the points. But I didn't. I stuck to my guns, and for that reason I've probably got a few less points than I could have done.
Yeah, to be fair, I didn't have Chris Wood either, but it was between him or Muniz, the Fulham striker. But this is Frankie's team and results from week 1. 60 points still. It's not a bad haul. Areola 1 point. Anderson obviously with 0. Might cause you a bit of an issue now he's off to Fulham. Porto and Trent giving you returns. Boslai, Garnacho, Gordon, Alanga, Jota obviously getting the goal. And then captain in Haaland was a good decision. So happy so far with your start.
Yeah, it was decent. You obviously called out Alanga as well. Once he started, I thought I was going to be singing Rhythm is a Dancer to you and going, look, there, I told you he was the man to pick. But yeah, it didn't quite work out again. He was in the starting lineup. He scored an amazing goal in his last game of pre-season. So I was really hopeful he'd hit the ground running. But unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way.
To be fair, when I seen him start, I was like, oh, no, I know what's going to happen. Alanga's away to score. I'm going to get the message. I was like, oh, here we go. But I had to send you a message at 3 on Saturday because my gamble backfired spectacular. However, wasn't really his fault. So those that tuned into last week's show know I had Jacob Murphy because I thought he was in form Premier League player in pre-season, but Shah decided to get sent off, and as a result, Murphy was substituted in order for Eddie Howe to put on an additional defender. So my gamble was over after just 28 minutes. I got 4 less points than you, to be fair. Had I captained Haaland, I would have been on 1 more point maybe than you. But Pickford obviously didn't do anything. Well, Pickford actually did it bad. Paulo, Trent and Gabriel at the back there. So I was happy with my defensive points haul. My gamble midfield of Murphy didn't work out. Bowen and Rodgers, I don't mind them getting low scores because they're long-term picks for me. Up front, Isak got the assist. Haaland got a goal. Muniz didn't really do anything. I was disappointed because I felt there was a couple of opportunities for him against Man United. He just didn't really take advantage of. I messed up by not having Hall in the team, but that's the one transfer I did. Between my team last week showing you guys and the deadline, I took Barco out and put Lewis Hall in because his ownership was up at like 30-something%, and that's too high for my liking because if everybody starts selling him, his value comes down. And
he's going on loan now, isn't he?
Yeah, that's happened. So I've made the right call there. But I've got a bit of a problem. Kwanzaa's come down in price. He's had a 0.1 million deducted because Arnslot substituted him at halftime and said it was because he was rubbish. He might as well have just said that. So everybody's sold him, but I've stuck with him. Right, moving into game week 2 then, Frankie. Is there any players you've had your eye on?
To be honest, like I said, because of the way I set up the team, I'm quite comfortable now for the next couple of weeks. My plan is to basically accumulate those transfers, as many as I can. So I didn't want to use any this week. So I have switched out Alanga. That potential knock is a bit of an issue anyway. So he has come out. Also, Pedro Porro. I don't know whether I'm taking the gamble on him. I'm going to wait and see the final press conference before the match and see if there's any update on him. It didn't seem too bad. He wasn't strapped up. He didn't have any ice on it. He seemed to be moving around okay. So if he looks all right, at the moment he's been subbed out, but he might creep back in. But I've got Cucurella back in, so he's come in off the bench for this one against Wolves. And Solanke, I made a very late change last week, so that's not a transfer for this week. He was brought in among a couple of changes before game week 1. So it's Solanke, Isak and Haaland up front. The big talking point for me is whether or not Haaland is a triple captain this week. That is... If you look at the stats and you look at the data and whatever else, everything points to the suggestion that the best potential return is Haaland versus Ipswich. That is the best potential points return out of any player versus any team this season. Also, the betting companies actually make him predicted as 1.3 goals, so they expect him to score more than one against Ipswich. So normally you wouldn't play chips this early on into the season, but we've only got 2 double game weeks this season, and we've also got a mystery chip, so it's potentially 4 chips to play, and you can only play so many when we've got a double game week. So it's looking like this is literally the best chance to play a triple captain, and that person should be Haaland. It just feels too early. So toying with the idea. I don't know whether I'm going to do it or not, but yeah, we'll see.
Right. As for people listening, by the way, neither of us class ourselves as experts in FPL. We're just people that like to play it and we create content. So we're creating content about FPL. Right. Mystery chip. I'm going to ask a really dumb question here. What is it, or does it still remain a mystery?
See, no, it does still remain a mystery. It's not going to be revealed until November. Okay. So November time, we will be told what that mystery chip is. There's a few rumours that it's a reactivation chip. So you might be able to reactivate one of your already used chips. So you might be able to reactivate your bench boost, your free hit or your triple captain. Other people think it could be something totally different. So we don't know. But it seems quite exciting. A lot of people are making out that this could be a real game changer. So, yeah, it's maybe use chips earlier than what you usually do. But again, that could be a completely wrong thing to do, and it could be a big mistake. So we don't know.
This is where I show how amateur I am at Fantasy League. When I've played in the past, I always keep my triple captain until the double game week. And in my way, there's only 2 this week, but I still feel like I prefer the chance of a player playing 2 games rather than him providing 1. So
yes, but the bench boost is better than a triple captain. It actually normally delivers more points as a bench boost because you've got 4 players getting 2 matches worth of points. That's more valuable than 1 player on a triple captain. So it's things like that where that's where the strategy starts.
Do you think you're gonna go early with your triple captain?
I mean, everything points to the fact that we should do it, and this is the game to do it. The only thing that makes me nervous is I'm not a big fan of stats, and while I'll quote them and I'll use them and it's interesting to hear, stats in football, we all know as football fans, sometimes things don't go to plan. Football has a funny way of certain things happening, and it's just like there's the typical, somebody will say, oh, well, a player might not have scored for however long, they then turn up against West Ham, they're guaranteed to score, things like that. Or whether it be when we used to play Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, we knew that he was going to score against West Ham. There are certain things that just happen against the grain in football, and it is what it is. Everything in the stats says that Haaland scores more than 1 goal against Ipswich, if you look at the data. I'm not totally buying into that. Ipswich were pretty solid against Liverpool for 45 minutes last week. And City can almost not take their foot off the gas, but they can be a bit casual at times against the sides that, maybe are not as exciting for them to play, or there's not as much on it. So it's early on in the season as well. It's not like it's a crunch game and City have got to go and smash them and there's a title race going on. So I don't know. Could Ipswich come out, be right up for it, cause them a bit of trouble, maybe stay very tight and very defensive? And, we know they're going to pretty much, stick every man behind the ball and make it difficult for City. They've got no Rodri still, so that's a little bit of a loss, but they have got Kevin De Bruyne back. So I don't know. I'm still umming and ahhing. I would say, me being the man that I am, I would probably roll the dice. But do you know what? I also don't want to I don't want to play it early and it be for the reason that in the back of my mind, I want to try and push up that points table a little bit. Sometimes patience is a good thing. I don't know, Gio. I don't know.
You're almost convincing me, to be honest with you. I've seen people considering it. It wasn't really for me, but I thought Ipswich were wide open against Liverpool in the second half. I thought Liverpool could have had 4 or 5, to be honest with you. A bit more clinical, a little bit more composed, better decisions and around the box. And I think Man City tend to have those things about them. They tend to be a bit more clinical than Liverpool. But Foden should be back in for this one as well. And I know Rodri's a bit of a blow, but actually I think in regards to this, it could be better because you've got almost another attacker on the pitch now.
Yeah.
The most defensive midfielder for Manchester City will be Kovacic, who can contribute and did against Chelsea in the final third too. So you've almost got like 5 attacking midfielders playing behind Haaland for this one. No Alvarez, no replacement for Alvarez. Increases the likelihood that Haaland will play 90 minutes of this match as well. So I think actually everything's pointing towards triple cap. It's something for me to deliberate actually now we start to speak about it. I have made a transfer though, Frankie. This is my team. I've already set it. What I tend to do is set my team ASAP in case I forget to do it. It's not the end of the world. I've already done my team kind of thing. But I've gone early with my transfer. Don't know why, I just did. So Henderson remains in goal up against West Ham. Well, I say he's come in and Pickford's gone to the bench. I've kept my back 3 of Porto, Trent and Gabriel. I've brought in Eze for Murphy, which was always the plan. Murphy was always a 1-week pick, but he's coming against West Ham. I thought he looked sharp against Brentford and was unlucky. Not, that free kick was magnificent. It should have stood, in my opinion, but he had a couple of other opportunities later on in the game as well. I wasn't convinced by West Ham's defence against Aston Villa, so I think Palace will score. The Palace are going to score. Who's the likeliest player? Well, it's Eze and Mateta. Bowen and Rodgers are long-term picks. Jota's a long-term pick for me. And then my front 3 of Haaland, Isak and Muniz, Hall, Kwanzaa and Minty on the bench. Now, I have to say that I've had my eye on some Palace players because they've got some favourable fixtures coming up. So I'm pleased to get Eze in there as well as Henderson. I still think Munoz is a really good pick if you're looking for a Crystal Palace defender. I'm staying away from Chelsea and Brighton at the minute, though, Frankie. Too many options. Now they've signed Jota. Now they've signed Rutner from Leeds United. There's just too many attacking players at each club. And I really like Nkunku, but didn't have him on game week 1 because I wanted to see how he got on in the first few weeks. I feel like I've made the right decision there. Started against City, but got taken off just under the hour mark, so you lose out on points there. Then he's gone and played over 50 minutes on Thursday night against Servette in the Conference League. Yeah. Most of the team was rotated, but Nkunku remained in there. Now, he did score the penalty, but that's not... I don't think that's good news when he's starting, but the likes of Palmer and that are on the bench. That's scary. So I've stayed away from Brighton and Chelsea, and I think I'll stay away from them for a couple of weeks yet, actually. I just want to see how the lineup lies. But I think it's time next week. My ambition is to try and get Ollie Watkins into this team ahead of next week. A tough fixture this week against Arsenal, but then I think it's Ollie time from game week 3.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible option. I'm the same, and Nkunku could end up being one of the sort of worst picked players early on in the season. The amount of people who went for him because he had a pretty decent pre-season, but as we know, pre-season don't really mean too much. So he also didn't play very centrally against City. Obviously, City's a very different game than if they're playing somebody else, so that might change, but at the moment, he looks like he wasn't the best choice early on in the season, and like you say, there's just too many players to rotate. It's I'm with you. Just stay away. I've got Cucurella in there this week. I mean, that's only because Pedro Porro is a bit iffy.
That's a safe pick. The Cucurella is a safe pick.
Yeah, so, but I don't have any Palace, mate, because I will be there. I will be in the stands with my boy, and I don't want to have any sort of feeling towards a Crystal Palace player performing particularly well. So I hope we go and absolutely spank them and they don't score a goal. And
Well,
yeah,
I'll accept us winning 4-3 and Enzo getting a hat trick.
I'm sure you would.
That's a fair compromise, in my opinion. Have you got any regrets about your team in regards to anybody you wish you had, but you can't really get over to him at the minute?
Not at the moment. I mean, Haaland was the one that it was. Do you put him in early? I'm glad I went for him early. I'm not. I think the only thing that I could feel a little bit is, have I gone too heavy with the strikers and maybe not had the option of bringing in Salah? That might be the one thing that, but a lot of people have gone Haaland or Salah. I'm still not convinced Salah has the glorious season that he has had in the past. So that could come back to bite me, but we'll see. Jota's still in there. I'm glad I went that route. He wasn't in my plans early on, but after the talks of him being their sort of main striker down the middle this season, he had to be in there for the points, for the value that he cost. So I'm glad I went that route. I'm happy. I've not got to use a transfer. I've been able to cater for the fact there's 2 players potentially on injuries and still be very happy with my starting lineup. So I'm sitting pretty at the moment. I'm going to accumulate those free transfers and then hopefully they'll come into their own in a couple of weeks' time when I can rotate a bit and that might help me. I'm not gone flying at the beginning, but I'm hoping that maybe it will be a sort of 4-week plan and I'll be sitting quite pretty at the end of it.
Gavardiol for me, just because City away play Ipswich, and he's possibly the best Man City defender to pick up because he sometimes has attacking returns, and he's the one player I wish I had for this weekend. However, I ain't spending points to get him, and I'm still happy with my trio of Gabriel, Trent, and Pedro Porro, and hoping over the course of the season I'll have made the right decisions. But he's the one player that I'm when Man City away play Ipswich at home, you don't have a City defender. I think part of me thinks I'm going to lose out here. People around me that have got City defenders are going to have an advantage going into this one. It feels mad to only have one Man City player in my team.
I was about to say that I've only got one, and I've got triple Liverpool. And while they're at home to Brentford, they're that sort of side that could quite easily go to Anfield and do pretty well. So
yeah, but they're just expensive City players, and I'd like Phil Foden, but 9.5 million. His minutes aren't guaranteed at the minute after the Euros and stuff like that. So staying away from him. Cole Palmer's expensive. I'm staying away from him. No regrets on that one so far. But I think he'll be one player that will bite us on the arse eventually. But it's just value. Is it worth it going for him early doors? I'm not sure. So far, after 1 week, we've been proven correct. But they've got Wolves up next, which is a decent enough fixture for him. Got 90 minutes against Man City, half an hour during the week in the Conference League game as well. So I'm sure we'll see the best of him. But I'm intrigued as to what Maresca does long term, because he had Enzo Fernandez sort of playing number 10 against Man City. And it's a case of, well, is that your intention long term, or is it just because it was Man City? You had maybe a bit more of a defensive player in that attacking role. So what's the long-term plan? You're going to move in Kunku there, take Neto in on the left-hand side. What is your intention? So I think there's a lot of questions remain regarding players and managers at the start of the season, and I'll form my decision. I'm sticking with the tried and tested players here, I think, and that's why my hope is to try and get Watkins in next week. If not, I'll try and get an Aston Villa defender in, I think, because I think long-term there'll be a good pick. Cons as a cheap option in there. But I was hoping for Maatsen, but I'm, again, waiting to see, does he eventually knock Lucadine out of that team and when? I don't want to go early on Maatsen, but I'm hoping his price might drop a little bit over the next couple of weeks, and then he comes into 11 and that becomes the right time to go get him. And it's one of those pick and leave players. Do you know what I mean? You just pick him and you never worry. But Jared Bowen's that player for me, unless he goes 6 weeks without a return or something. Because I don't mind benching him. He's not that expensive that I don't mind leaving him out, but he's not a bargain anymore like he was last year. But Bowen's a pick and just leave him there for the whole season kind of player, which I like. So, right then, Frankie, anything you'd like to add ahead of game week 2 before we disappear?
No, I've just seen Solanke's fixtures there, and Newcastle, Arsenal coming up. So a move to Watkins, may also make sense for me. But
he looked good on Monday. I thought he looked like he was there a while.
I thought he did, and he had some chances. He was getting quite a few chances, actually. He should have probably notched, and he didn't. So, but those two fixtures, Newcastle and Arsenal, were not great. So, the way that I'm playing things and I'm trying to accumulate these free transfers and not use transfers every week, it should be quite easy for me to switch him out if I need to. But
I get twitchy fingers. I like a transfer. I do.
I do, and mate, I'm the sort of person who tinkers every single week. I normally am always transferring in and out, but just this whole you can get up to 5 free transfers this season. I'm trying to use that a little bit wisely and not burn through the transfers if I can. So time will tell. Time will tell.
Well, thank you for joining us. Let us know in the comments how you got on game week 1, as well as what your team's looking like ahead of game week 2. Give us your teams, your points, discuss anything you want in Fantasy League in the comments below. Myself and Frankie will be in the comments having a little chin wag with you. And anything you'd like to see in future episodes of this series, please do get involved, because your feedback's the most important thing. It allows us to learn. We appreciate it. It's never going to be the most popular series we do here on Hammers Chat, but we enjoy doing it, and hopefully some of you enjoy listening to it as well. But do get involved. But if you have enjoyed this video, please do drop a like, comment by clicking thumbs up, subscribe to Hammers Chat, myself and Frankie. Catch you in a bit.